Next up is Jamie Dickinson. Dicko, he says, Ben looks better bald than he did when he had hair.
Unpopular opinion, apparently. Is it an unpopular opinion, chat? What do we think?
I agree. I much prefer the bald.
He's
look.
more intimidating.
I'm much improved.
And we would like to announce that Ben is going to be starring in This Is England 3. He's going to be playing Stephen Graham's brother.
Baldy.
Ben Levy.
Next up is from Bella. I can't even pronounce that, but it says Ange is exactly what the club needs to actually get traction. That Levy is no good. Yeah, that's a good point.
If Ange gets Levy gone, has he done his job?
100%. He gets a statue outside.
He gets a statue. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know if it's true, but just because I think like Conte did a lot more in terms of trying to expose the ownership than Ange is doing in terms of him personally.
Yeah, but Conte was too good a manager because he finished in the fourth. When he was sacked, he was fourth. You know, we were going too well, and now we're doing so badly. It kind of like a lot more people get on board, I reckon.
Yeah, maybe there's something to that.
Next up is T history. Luka Vuskovic will have a Lucas Bergvall type of arc and will cement his place as a starter by February, and that's on the condition that Romero leaves.
Hard to say. I'd like to believe that. I think Vuskovic is clearly a star in the making. I think I'm very excited about him. I think he is definitely going to be a starting Tottenham centre-back at some point.
Some point in his career, yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be next season. Maybe. I think it's more likely if he is part of the squad next season, we bed him in, for a large part of the season. And I don't know well, look, Bergvall did it, so maybe Vuskovic can do it as well, break in. But is he just a bit too young? I don't know.
The thing is, though, Bergvall got nurtured in like the Europa League games in the early part of the season. Then it was kind of just because of injuries that he got his chance in the league, wasn't it? He got kind of lucky in that aspect. But Luka Vuskovic ain't going to have European football to bed himself in next season. He's not going to. Like, I can't see where are the opportunities going to come from. Are we just going to throw him in Premier League games?
Yeah, if we're not in Europe, yeah. If we're not in Europe, I mean, even if we're Champions League, he can play Champions League games. If we win Europa League, don't even know.
Don't think so.
Do you think if we were to bed him in like Bergvall, he could have a Bergvall-like arc?
Potentially. I mean, it's hard to really say because we don't watch him week in, week out. And, we see his highlight reel and we see the clips and the goals that he scores. But
the talent is undeniable.
Yeah, the talent is undeniable from what we've seen in these kind of clips. But it's hard to make a judgment like that when you don't watch him week in, week out. Like Bergvall, we've literally watched him every single minute that he's played since coming into the team. So we actually know what he's about. Like Vuskovic, as much as we read the reports and blah, 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 and we see the highlights, we don't 100% know with our own eyes what he's fully about.
And also players like Bergvall, especially early in the season, he's in a position where I'm not saying it's not a bad thing or it can't be costly, but in midfield you can misplace a pass or you could try and beat someone and get tackled and you can make a mistake and it doesn't necessarily have to cause a goal. Whereas when you're an 18-year-old centre-back and you cause a mistake, a lot of the time that is going to cause a goal, put you in trouble. So it's just a different kind of position, isn't it, in terms of responsibility?
Yeah, I feel like in Ange's system, Vuskovic might not be an amazing fit because we've heard that, he's not that fast and, can get done in that kind of aspect. So maybe if he has a Van de Ven next to him, it can kind of caveat for it. But I don't know. I feel like potentially if Ange was our manager, people might say, oh, he needs another loan, maybe in England.
Yeah, I think maybe.
Next up, all right. Tottenham Fox says, we need to sell. Deep breath. Davis, Dragshin, Biss, Rodrigo, Johnson, Werner, Forster, Reguilon, Romero, Scarlett. 40% of the squad have to go, but thought we just had a rebuild. Another shocking recruitment drive. So, We'll take it one by one. I think Davis. I think like one more season of Davis is not the biggest deal, but I think obviously long term he is going to go, and he's not going to be here past next season.
I would take money if we can get it, to be honest.
Regardless, like fine, but like in terms of having Davis as part of the squad is not a total detriment for us, particularly if we're not even in Europe next season. Like when's he ever going to play?
Yeah.
Dragoshin, I agree with. I don't think he fits the system. However, if a new manager comes in, plays a bit deeper and whatever, I think he can be a good asset for us. I don't think he's a bad player.
But now you're talking about two players who are like, and you want to keep both of them. You know what I mean?
True. Like, yeah, I said in my keep, loan and sell, like keep Davis for one more year and sell Dragoshin. Anyway, Bissouma I agree with. Rodrigo Bentancur. It's a difficult one with Bentancur because I do think he's a good player, but I just don't know if we can. I just don't know if he's ever going to get back to the kind of pre-ACL Rodrigo Bentancur where we can rely on him every single game. As part of the squad, as maybe like a rotation option, fine. But like to be our starting midfielder week in, week out, I don't know if I trust him.
I'll give him another year to show the levels. I think he can. I think he's improving. I think he's improved ever since he come back from that injury. But yeah, the reality is he's still very inconsistent. So he needs to prove he can stay consistent at a high level. But I'll give him another year.
Johnson, I think like the hate Johnson gets, and I get he's not playing well at the moment. I get when he doesn't score, he's not contributing. But the attribute that he has to just pop up with assists and goals regularly, more goals than assists this season, I think people are overlooking that way too quickly. And to have someone like that in the squad doesn't mean he has to be starting week in, week out, but just to have someone like that even on the bench to bring on in games that can just pop up in a goal, I think that is such a good attribute to have within the squad. So I would not sell Johnson.
Funny thing is, if Ange leaves, I would consider it because I think he's such a kind of. I think he really benefits from Ange's system in terms of how he gets into those positions. If he was playing in like let's say he was playing Liverpool's team, I don't know if he gets as many goals or assists as he is at the moment because. If you look at like Liverpool's how they play with their front line a lot of time, it does rely a lot more on like their on-ball ability and their ability to get shots off, make things for themselves a bit more. Whereas under this system with Ange, he relies a lot more on his physical attributes to get in the positions, doing the right things, and I think it gets him a lot of goals. I think he's very much a system player in that sense. So if he's going into a different system, I'm not convinced he gets as many goals and assists.
But you look at it like the system that he was in Nottingham Forest, right? A counter-attacking team. Like he was very good in that kind of system as well.
Yeah, running in behind. But again, we don't want to be that team.
No.
Potentially. Or I don't think we do want to be that team anyway. So
our best results have come that way this season.
Yeah, potentially. There's a case for that as well. So what I'm saying is, I wouldn't if Ange isn't here, depending who our new manager is, I don't think he's an untouchable. But also, I completely agree. The amount of goals and assists he does get cannot be ignored. The hardest thing to do is put the ball in the back of the net. And if it was as easy as everyone thinks it is, then every winger would be on as many goals as Johnson is. But he's not. They're not.
Yeah, I think the price tag does him dirty a little bit, and I think people kind of judge him against that price tag, which is fair enough. You know, players are going to get judged against that price tag. But if we brought him in for like 15 million instead of 50 million, are people going to have the same kind of narrative about him?
No, definitely not. And also, I think he's also kind of not the figurehead, but I think people use their frustrations at the board and aim at a lot of Johnson because he's kind of, people look at him as the evidence of why this club is where it is and not progressing in terms of spending big money, but not going for the best or the high quality players because they don't want to spend the wages, and we would rather go for a young player like Johnson who's on less wages rather than going for a Semenyo or whoever it is,
which is true.
And so they take out their frustrations on Johnson because he's the kind of represents that.
I agree with that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, 100%. And it's true, but people also forget he's a young player and still developing, and I think he's got a lot to learn, and I think you never know. You never know what kind of player Johnson can be in the next 3-4 years. You know, he can be a lot better than what he's showing now, particularly with good coaching.
Yeah.
Timo Werner, Fraser Forster, Reguilon, I think we all agree with. Romero and Scarlett are interesting ones. I like Scarlett. I do like Scarlett every time I see him play. But is he good enough to be kind of part of the squad to be where we want to be right now? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
he is only 20.
I know. Yeah. But he needs to basically get some more game time in the Premier League to prove he can be part of the squad. If next season started tomorrow, we just haven't seen enough. The thing is with Kane, right, is he had that before he really broke into the team. He had that little spell, didn't he, under Sherwood, where he got a few goals and he showed he actually could be a Premier League player. Scarlett's just never had that, but he's never had the chance. But that's why you could have trusted Kane that following season to be part of the squad, because he showed he is Premier League level. Even though we didn't know how good he was, we still saw he was a Premier League player.
A lot of the criticism come towards Scarlett is about his physicality, and I think he's definitely improved that. He's looking like more of a man now, you know what I mean, in terms of like a little boy coming through the academy. He does look like more of a man. He's filled out his body a bit more. He's very physical, you know, he can muscle in with like Premier League defenders, no problem now, I think. I think from now until the end of the season, we should be kind of giving him some minutes in the Premier League.
I hope so. And maybe giving Solanke a bit of a rest. But you've got Richarlison coming back as well. But I would like to see Scarlett get a few more opportunities. I agree. In terms of Romero, I don't think we need to sell him in terms of quality, but in terms of have to sell him, yeah.
Next up is from Rich. Says, this team misses Hojbjerg more than we realised. He was a steady 6 we had and didn't replace. Well, it's very true we didn't replace him. But, I mean, people also forget. I mean, people talk about this with Hojbjerg, and I've heard this kind of argument all season. But also people forget, like last season, how much we were criticising him and how much he wasn't a fit for the system and fit for the way that we want to play. Yeah.
And let's be honest, how many does he play for any of the teams above us, Hojbjerg? Like in the top 6, in terms of starting, maybe he can be in the squad, but in terms of starting,
no, he doesn't. But the reality is that if you're going to get rid of a player like Hojbjerg, you need to bring in someone to replace him. And he was part of the leader. He had a big kind of say in the dressing room. He was a leader on the pitch, and people talking about the lack of leaders right now. And yeah, selling Bergvall and bringing in the 2 young midfielders that we brought in is a big departure from that.
Agreed. But I do think it's just something that needed to happen if we really were trying to kind of move on from that team that we had.
The problem wasn't selling Hojbjerg.
Yeah,
the problem was not bringing in a replacement.
That's the point. Yeah. So I don't think we miss Hojbjerg. Essentially, I think we just didn't replace him adequately.
Yeah. Ghostface_UD says Bissouma is just struggling with form and isn't a bad player. I think we all know he's got qualities. That's not the issue here, but the reality is he's been a flop signing ever since signing for this club. He came with a big reputation after good performances for Brighton, and in my opinion, he's nowhere near lived up to anywhere close to that reputation at Tottenham. We got a glimpse of it in the first 10 games of last season, and apart from that, he's been way too inconsistent.
Well, we were praising him heavily at the beginning of the season, though.
Yeah, maybe for a few games here and there. But he's never been consistent apart from those first 10 games.
That's true. Yeah, I agree with the opinion. I don't think he's a bad player. But I also don't think at this point you can't just say it's form as well, because it's gone on for too many spells. So at that point, you got to also consider under Conte, he never wasn't really trusted. Did for one reason or another. You start to question why he wasn't trusted now under Conte. So I don't think he's a bad player, but I also think when the reality is, if you can't keep yourself consistently for that amount of time, and there's no real reason for it because he's not really had too many injuries or anything like that. It's just been himself. And he has been trusted. It's not like he hasn't had opportunities or been trusted by Ange. He's given loads of opportunities.
Ange put so much trust in him.
Yeah.
And the words that he was saying about him being a leader, potentially a leader in this dressing room. And it's pretty much just all been thrown back in his face, let's be real.
Yeah, and that's probably why he's on his way out in the summer. So I don't think he's a bad player. I do think whoever he goes to next, he might have a good time of it. But I just don't think he's ever going to be a top player, unfortunately.
I think it's more of a mentality thing. Reese says, we will only see and feel the true benefits that Ange has had and achieved for our football club after he's left. What does he mean by that?
Guessing he means, first of all, getting the team playing, attacking football again, all these kind of things. And I'm guessing it means the younger players, how they've developed and all that kind of stuff. I guess that's what he's referring to.
Yeah. I mean, it's true with you. I mean, Ange even said it himself at some point. He didn't say it exactly that, but he said, you know, we've got unbelievable players like the Bergvalls and the Greys, and maybe I won't be the beneficiary to see them at their kind of full flight. Maybe it'll be the next manager or the manager after, but yeah, I mean,
he said he hopes it's him. He said
he hopes it's him, but it's not a guarantee that it will be him. And yeah, I think that's true. I genuinely believe that all these young players that we've brought in, the Saar, Bergvall, Gray, Hojbjerg, Mikey Moore coming from the academy, I think all these players, you know, have such high ceilings. Even Tell, I think he's got a really high ceiling. I think all these players are such high ceilings, but to kind of try and bring them all through at the same time is always going to be a hard job.
Very. And so especially given the circumstances as well, with all the injuries we've had, and some players have overplayed and some of them have been injured and maybe haven't developed as quickly. And, you know, Hojbjerg hasn't maybe, you know, he's been hampered by injury. And then Gray's been playing in the wrong position because of the injuries and all these different things. So, yeah, I think we will benefit long term from their development, but yeah, it's been very difficult this season. But will we see the true benefits of Ange? Yeah, I guess so.
Jonathan says, we're rapidly growing into the role of a development club, not signing players of the quality to play for a top 6 club or wanting to challenge for top 4 every season. Only investing into youth and not actual starters will cost us eventually, and it already is. I kind of do agree with that to a certain extent.
Rapidly growing into a development club. I don't know. You basically just off last summer.
I mean, the summers, the last 3 or 4 summers, we've kind of like heavily invested in youth.
Yeah, but we've also signed the likes of Vicario, who's not a youth player, Maddison, who's not a youth player, Solanke's not a youth player. So it's not just like only youth. Okay,
you've mentioned 3 players that can get into our starting 11. The rest of them have all been young players, youth players.
Porro, I mean, he was that was under Conte, to be fair. Who else is there? Richarlison was heavy investment.
Yeah,
I guess it depends when you're taking it from. I don't know, Van der Ven. I guess he's not a youth player, but he is young. But I don't know if he's youth. Or do you count as what do you count as development? Is he a development signing or is he a signing for the starting 11?
Well, I think both. I think he was a signing for the start 11, but also a player that has a lot of room to grow as well.
Okay, but you know, would a top signing would a top team not have signed
him in itself? But when you look at the bigger picture, we are looking more like a team buying, you know, players like development players that, you know, we're looking at the model that kind of like Brighton do or whatever. We're trying to be more like that club than more like a top club.
That's a smart thing to do.
It's smarter to be like Brighton than to be like Man City.
No, I'm saying in terms of buying players before they explode, so you don't have to spend as much money on them.
It's smarter if you don't have ambitions to go and win the title because you don't have any guarantees that these players are going to explode.
Yeah, correct. But how many players have we missed out on? And then even some players we ended up spending a lot more money on because we didn't get them at the best time. So we're trying to get them at a better time. Is that not a bad thing? Is that not a good thing?
I think the good thing is to do it in tandem with each other, where you buy youth, but you also buy top level players for the here and now, not players that like the players that we bought for the here and now are not top level players. They're not like Solanke, Maddison. Like Maddison is probably one of the best of the bunch, if not the best of the bunch in terms of talent. But the rest of them are not like top level players. They're not players that teams above us that are going to be going for.
Yeah, I guess. I guess that's true. But I don't know. I don't know if we're a development club. But I do think we're definitely signing a lot younger players. And that's the name of the game. If you're going to sign younger players, they're not going to be world class just yet because they're younger. And obviously we have signed a few established players, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't know if we're a development club. I don't know what that means. What is he trying to say? We're not signing players of the quality to play for a top club, wanting challenge for top 4 every season, only investing in youth. I think last season I agree. I wouldn't necessarily say that's the policy of the club. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we signed some starters in the summer. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I hope so.
I think based off last season, yeah, but I wouldn't say in general that's true. I mean, based off last summer, I would say.
Next up is Vanish Spacine saying Van der Ven is only good because of his pace. Without pace, his defending overall is not good. I mean, Van der Ven his pace is the key, his unique selling point, isn't it?
It's like saying take Mbappe's pace away. What is he? You're right. He's not a world class footballer if you take Mbappe's pace away.
Exactly.
So I think the same is with Van der Ven.
You can say that with every single top player. Take their best attribute away.
And
what are they?
Yeah, exactly. So
I think that's stupid.
So silly. I agree. He's not the best. He's not as good in terms of defending as some of the other defenders without his pace. I agree, but he has his pace, and that's what got him to where he is now. So.
Anuj says, Ange should stay for next season. Give him a final chance to prove himself because wherever he's going after this, he's succeeding. It depends where he goes, to be honest. Maybe if he goes back to the J League, he'll succeed. But I feel like with Ange, the only reason I'd give him next season is if he wins the Europa League and also gives us that season that we can get Poch at the end of it.
Yeah, I think. Right now, I think how we're going and all the with the fan base and everything, and where the board's at, I can't see unless he does something special in Europa League and things really improve in the league that he will stay next season. I do think there's a good chance he'll go somewhere else and do really well. I really do, because I do think he's a good manager. I wouldn't mind if he stayed next season, but. I think
we all know you wouldn't mind.
I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I wouldn't mind if he stayed next season. I like him, but especially because I'm not mad. I'm not crazy about any other alternatives right now as well. I think also plays into it. But if you're judging, if we're playing the game of, either if you have a good season, you're in the job. If you don't, you're gone. Then he has to go.
Next up is Ashley Howard saying loyalty points for home games for season ticket holders shouldn't be awarded on renewal, but instead a game-by-game basis upon tapping in at the turnstiles. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing to do. I think that'd be actually
get
a
all
fairly
your
good thing to do.
guaranteed points. I
mean, I'd want them, but I think if you're going to do them based on loyalty, it should be when tapping in.
Rather than, I guess. I don't really have a strong opinion on that.
All right. Terry O'Shea says, Sim, why are your standards so low? Every time Ben makes a valid, logical point, your responses are filled with weak excuses starting, yeah, but, or I think. There's never actually anything factual behind your arguments, just vague, fluffy feelings that are based on nothing substantial.
Yeah, it's a very unpopular opinion, I would say, that tweet.
I don't think this guy understands unpopular opinion.
Is that a question or an opinion? But why am I... Look, I went through this when the reacting to comments video, but it's more about just trying to give context rather more than anything else. I was thinking about this, actually. I was thinking about like an example of what I meant when I was saying that. It's like, for example, at the beginning of the season, right?
Saying what?
About it's not more about excuses and taking the blame or trying to defend. It's more trying to give context. And you were like, no, it's excuses. And I was like trying to think of an example of what I mean. And I would say a good example I would say of it is beginning of the season. when we were talking about the Europa League squad, we both agreed that Spence. We both agreed that Spence should have been in the squad, and we both were critical of that decision. But I was also saying I could understand the decision because of the context, which is, we didn't really have a backup goalkeeper. Could we trust Forster and Austin at the time? Could we trust Austin and Whiteman at the time to cover for Vicario? And maybe felt like we needed an experienced keeper to back up Vicario if he ever got injured, and that's why I left him out. Now, I didn't agree with that, right? But because I gave that context, people say, "Oh, you're defending Ange." I'm just saying that I can understand the decision, although I disagree with it, right? And I do that quite a bit, and people say you're defending Ange, you're giving excuses, but I'm just trying to give context to a lot of these scenarios, which I think a lot of the time is left out, and people say it's just a bad decision, there's no excuse for it, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, well, there is another side to it, that you could look at it this way, but it doesn't necessarily always agree with it, but I do try and give some context. That's it. But in terms of why my standard's so low, because I don't know, but what do you mean my standard's so low?
The standards are low, Sid.
Maybe. Maybe they are. Because I just know what shit show this club is, and it's not going to be a quick fix. Nothing about this club is going to be a quick fix. And it needs time, and it needs patience, and obviously it does
go to 20 losses a season.
Yeah,
let it be.
Let it be. No, I'm joking. But I think we need to have this club needs to have someone at the helm for a few years to try and sort out all these issues, and chopping and changing is just going to lead to more problems coming around, and different problems, and troubleshooting and whack-a-mole problems, in my opinion. And at least if we can just have someone with a bit of stability, right, he can try and iron out all these issues with time. But I also agree it does get to a stage where you have to say, look, it ain't going to work with this guy because it's not going in the right direction. He can't turn it around, and that's fair enough. For me, I just want to give him to the end of the season and show that we've had all these issues this season, but he can get a tune out of this team, and that he does have the belief of the players, and how he plays can work. But look, at the moment, the jury's very much out on that.
Yeah, Danny Kiriakou, he's in the chat.
Go on, Danny.
He's saying, Sim, your standards are low. # Sim out.
Yeah, well, at the moment, we're just all I want to try and avoid is another situation where we're just chopping and changing. And I think if we get a new manager, yeah, I'm sure maybe it can improve.
There's nothing you can do to avoid that.
Huh?
There's nothing you can do to avoid that. It is what it is.
Nothing I can do.
Yeah. You said you're trying to avoid that situation. There's nothing you can do to avoid it.
I'm just giving my opinion that I don't want that to continue.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants it to continue in a perfect world.
Yeah.
John Fisherman says, the give it context bomb. Let Sean Butler cover that ground, Sim. You are sounding a lot like the contrarian that is Sean Butler recently.
He's a great content creator. I don't use that as a criticism.
And he also says that, Sim, it's hard to find the difference between your give it context and what you actually believe. And that's kind of what I would say.
That's fair enough. And maybe I should be clearer about what I think.
And a couple of members chats. Wolves 5 says, Sim, go and sign Cunha. His attitude stunk.
Did it? Who's Cunha's attitude?
Yeah, that's one of the Wolves fan.
Okay. I would love to sign Cunha.
I'd love Cunha. Bobby K, big up Bobby K.
It's Bobby K. It's Bobby K. It's Bobby K.
He says, good afternoon, boys, and everyone in the chat.
It's a very unpopular opinion, that one.
Danny Kiriakou says, Sim, your standards are low, shameful. # Sim out. Big up, lads. Love you, boys. I get what Sim is saying, though. Let's be honest. Who will succeed?
Well, who knows? Yeah. Who knows?
All right, let's carry on with these. This one says, tell Solanke Hojbjerg should be our front three next season.
I wouldn't mind it. But obviously, that means Son is either on the bench or he's left.
Tell has to develop at a good rate for that to happen. But
I do like the thought of Tell and Hojbjerg linking up on either wing, though. I think that could be good. And also because they're, together at international level, they're friends, they speak to each other. Those
They speak to each other. They're all in the same squad. They should all speak to each other.
No, I mean like before he joined Tottenham. But I like that that can maybe it could foster something special.
Yeah, I mean maybe in certain games, but I just Sonny is our best player and it's still in the front three in my opinion. So Sonny has to be in the front three. Really generic user says, if Levy and Enoch don't leave, then the next 10 years will have more bottom half finishes than top half ones.
Ooh, 10 years. Do you reckon a decade of more bottom half finishes, you reckon?
Nah, I don't agree. Even with Enoch at the helm, I still think we'll finish more in the top half than bottom half. How many bottom half finishes have we had in the last 10 years?
None.
Exactly.
None. We haven't. The last time we finished bottom half was under Ramos? 11th.
Yeah.
We finished 11th after winning the League Cup.
Yeah.
I think that was the last time. Yeah.
Yes, I still think even with the injuries this season, without these injuries, I still think we finish in the top half. I don't think we get top 4, top 5, but I do think we finish in the top half.
We still might.
Still, yeah, it's looking unlikely as every week progresses.
But yeah, I don't agree with that. I think we'll still. But he's saying more bottom half than top 4.
Oh, than top 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I can't see us finishing the top 4 anytime soon, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, in the next 10 years, no top 4 finishes for 10 years.
I mean, I can't sit here and genuinely
Get your crystal ball out.
I just don't want to believe it.
Get your crystal ball out and see how many top 4 finishes we're getting in the next 10 years. Surely we're getting more because Bergvall, Hojbjerg, they're all going to be better.
How many top 4 finishes have we had in the last 10 years?
So 10 years was 2014, so quite a lot. That's when Poch took over. So what, 4? We've Poch did it 3 times. 15, 16, 16, 17, 17. Poch did it 4 times, and Conte did it once. So 5.
5 and 5.
5 in the last 10. But then 4 of them were in the first 5 years of that decade.
Yeah.
And only one of them has been in the last 5 years.
It's actually mad because we're so used to having Champions League football, but actually we've only had 1 season in the Champions League the last 5 years. I don't know about bottom half because I think we're good enough even under Levy and Enoch to finish in the top
Also,
half.
Bergvall, Gray, Hojbjerg are all going to be better, hopefully.
Yeah, I can agree with not top 4 to top 4, but not bottom half to top 4 if that makes sense.